Welcome to this podcast brought to you by Growth Beyond Knowing, which explores ways for us to realize that we can achieve that which is beyond our own expectations, indeed, growth beyond knowing. I am Garth Brink, and my guest is Gabriel Uribe from Mexico. Now, he is a person with a mission, and this I have learned through the pleasure of meeting him, although not in person, but in several master programs that I attended that he and Alexander Inchbald, with whom I have previously been in discussion, facilitated. I found the discussions with him to be thought-provoking and enriching. Gabriel, you describe yourself as a coach. In fact, you're the first business leadership profile and flow consultant coach in Latin America. Certainly a major achievement. Also a facilitator and international speaker. And you inspire and influence in a positive way, and this I can attend to from the sessions that we've had together with Alexander and the other members of the programs that we've been on, that you influence in a positive way all the people who interact with you. And you encourage them to raise their level of consciousness, prosperity, and create their own wealth. He holds a degree in law, a master's degree in international trade and finance, as well as a master's degree in international marketing. He specialized in negotiation and sales management and earned a certificate in executive franchise. And as I mentioned, you are a certified coach. So Gabriel, welcome. And I look forward to our discussion as we explore the aspects of creating one's own wealth.
Thank you, Garth. Thank you for having me in this show. It's an honor to be in this program of growth beyond knowing, and it's an inspiring moment. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And you mentioned that you're committed to serving people by creating more wealth. Can you explain how you came to this realization? Why do you want to do it, and what actually do you hope to achieve?
Let me create some context in this one, because for me it's creating more wealth, is creating conscious wealth. And this became when I talk about wealth, it's always I'm talking about conscious wealth, and conscious wealth in my mind is always creating equilibrium in all areas in of your life, including money. So I came up with this idea or this realization when I was coaching several clients here in Mexico, and I started noticing a pattern. They were successful business owners, and indeed they had reached this point of creating real wealth. Like they have a good life, they have a great income, but they were in contact with their families, and they managed to have a good life. But that was when they came to me, they say that they wanted to grow their business and expand their business, because they felt that their message that they were having, it was not enough to be just in Mexico. So when we start working together, and then I start getting real frustrated, because between one session and the other one, they didn't apply, or they didn't commit to our commitments. They didn't do what we agree on, or that the strategic things that they were going to do. So I started to get a bit frustrated and just start digging a little bit more on what was happening with them, because from my perspective, that they were very overachievers, and they didn't have to have any problem applying new strategies or new methods. And then I start going a little bit more in depth with what's happening with them, and in their inside, in their head, and I came up with these stories like if I grow my business, I will spend more time on the business, and they they weren't feeling that enlightened or that they didn't want to exchange money and time at the same time. They were saying, I don't know if I want to spend more time in my business. I already spend that too much time, and I kind of miss my family. And so I started looking at those partners. That the other story that I came like very often, it was this story about what if I grow my business, and because I will be very ambitious about growing my business, I will sink my business, my actual business. So I start looking at those fears, and what was the pattern of my clients and what happened. And they were one of the saddest things that I came through. It's that a lot of business owners, they stop at their growing or expanding their businesses because of this unconscious fears that they like. Actually, it's like putting a brake on the car, and the other pedal is putting the gas. So they rationally say that they want to expand, but they have this unconscious fear of, what if I lose everything? What if I lose the equilibrium that I just got in my life if I try to expand it more? So I started to see, and sadly, I saw a couple of my clients that, because of they didn't step up their game, actually their businesses start going south, or start not growing, or actually one of them, he went bankruptcy because he didn't want to grow as a leader, as a business owner. So that's kind of the sad thing. And I started realizing that, at least in Mexico, sometimes some business owners, they have this, not mindset, but this stories that they build, that if they grow their business beyond their knowing, they can end up without balance, or with losing their souls. Some of them they have told me. So I decided to start creating a mastermind group for business owners that is called Rising Up, and it's bringing people together that they want to grow their business, but in a conscious way, and they start changing their behaviors, and also they start changing the way they look at wealth, and the way they look at their own management. And I hope to achieve that. At least 1,000 business owners elevate their level of consciousness, and they have a choice of growing their business, and not from a conscious choosing, and not from a fear perspective.
I think this is so pertinent, and no matter what form of business one is in, because often one starts off with great enthusiasm and great vision as to what that business is going to be. And as it expands, one comes to that point, as you said, where one has to make the decision: you either grow it or it stagnates. And this then, as you mentioned, leads to this conflict now, and the fear that arises, because what if, all these what if questions start to arise. And the more the what if questions arise, the more one becomes paralyzed, in a sense, as to actually not take a step. And you actually become, you reverse, as it were, you sort of go backwards. And this then leads to such a profound loss of confidence and ability for a person to actually see themselves succeed. Now, some people basically have a personality such that come what may, they will always succeed. But not everybody has that ability, unfortunately. And of course, there have been lots of sayings that, if at first you don't succeed, you must just carry on because eventually you will. And I think this concept that you have in terms of linking to one's consciousness and recognizing the fears can only lead to a better decision making that would benefit every person involved in it. And as a result of this has led you to writing a book, which you've entitled The 7 R's of Conscious Wealth. And I think it's important to have that conscious wealth there in the title, because when one talks about wealth and you talk to the person that one meets and you talk about creating wealth, all they see are dollar signs, basically. They do not think about the consciousness of it all. So I actually have 3 questions for you. The one is, what led you to write this book? That's the first question. The second is, what do you hope to achieve? What is the purpose of that book? And thirdly, just a brief synopsis of what you actually deal with in this book, what you cover. So the first question is, what led you to write it?
Actually, this pattern that I found with some of my clients, and actually it was like, it didn't start like a book. It started like me taking notes and trying to make a manual or something to give away in my mastermind groups. Like, okay, these are the tools that we are saying or that we found with others. And the first idea it's specifically, you said it, like, when you start a business, you started a business with a mindset, with a certain amount of mindset, and then and a certain situation. Like, you have money, you don't have money, like whatever. Probably you don't have kids, or you have kids. Like, there is a time and space that you created your business, and if you start going through time, but you don't evolve your mindset or your circumstance, then you start operating on the same mindset and with the same set of tools. And this, like, it's kind of obvious, but sometimes if you start your practice or you are an entrepreneur, you become, or you start learning stuff of like paying your bills and how to deal with banks and taxes and operations and all. You start doing that because you don't have a budget to hire someone. But then if you go if you forward yourself in time, sometimes your habits that you start building on that, your wealth habits, are created on the mindset and under the circumstance of the past. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the business owners, they want to keep managing their business, and actually that happened. Like, one of my clients, like, he was very money controlled, and he signed it all Fridays. He sit up on his office and review all the money, the checks that he was signing, and that was a great way to control the money and know how much money he had and how much he need to spend and whatever. But that was before he reached the $1 million. Then he was spending, like, instead of 100 checks, he was starting to need to sign 1,000 checks. Like, so it was time consuming, and it was a nonsense because he had a team of 7 or 8 people that they can do that job. So he just started to realize that he was spending a lot of time, valuable and precious time, that he could spend in other part of his business or other parts of his life, but he was in the habit of spending time like reviewing the checks and doing that. So that was kind of what are the practices of the habits of wealth that people have, and the idea of which are the new habits or how to upgrade your habits of wealth if you want to grow it into the next stage. There is a quote of a book that it's what got you here won't get you there. But to be conscious about what got you here won't get you there is your own mindset and your own habits of wealth that you're not conscious of. So if you want to go to the next level, you need to upgrade that. So that was kind of the what led me to write this book. It was not to give them more to do to a client. It was actually to allow them to reflect on what not to do in the trouble to come, or in the way that they're going. Yeah.
So I think it's what you've just mentioned now is even more relevant during this current COVID-19 pandemic, because we can't use the same mindset in order to ensure that our businesses or whatever it is that we are involved in survive. And
Yeah.
it requires basically a huge paradigm shift. And unfortunately well, maybe or fortunately, whatever way one wants to look at it, that it requires almost a catastrophic event to get one to change that mindset. And so I see that, and you've also described in basically the purpose of your book, and that is to get them to recognize that, and that, as you said, what you do in the past is not going to carry you on into the future, no matter how successful that was in the past. So I would imagine that the purpose of your book would be very much to get them to recognize that, so that they can adapt and change as things change.
Yes, the purpose of a yes, but not from a victim perspective, but from an expanding and peaceful perspective. Like,
Right.
They choose to grow. Like, for me, the growing part of ourselves and our businesses is like inevitable. Like you cannot avoid it. But how you grow it's one of the, I think, the bravest decisions that you can make. That it's, I want to grow in this part or with this equilibrium, and it takes a lot of courage to probably grow your business and say, hey, I wanted to grow it only until this part, or I wanted to grow it without spending more times. And actually, this happened to me when I was starting my business. One of my colleagues told me that if I wanted to become successful in this business, I needed to do trainings on weekends. And for me, that was out of the question. Like, it was like, I'm not working. I'm not going to do that exchange. And it was very clear for me. So the equation, it's a little bit more complex. So because it's then, okay, how can I create this amount of money with working in this amount of time and without exchanging times on the weekends? And spending time, and so it starts to create your own court and your own game, your own money game, your own wealth game. That's the consciousness of the game.
So it's a balance basically that is required, and to make sure that there is that equilibrium that exists between desires and time and other aspects involved with it.
Yep.
Are you able to just give us a quick overview? When you talk about the 7 R's, what are the 7 R's, if you could Because this obviously is what your book is based on,
Yeah.
looking at these 7 R's. And it'd be interesting to know what the titles or what the 7 R's actually are.
Yeah, there are principles, 7 principles, and from those principles they create some habits. So the first one, and I'm going to go through the 7, and I'm going to focus in the first one because it's related to the comment that you said about COVID-19. So the first one is respire. Yeah, it's breathing. Yeah, that's and the second one is remembering. The third one is reconnect. The fourth one is reunite. The third one is reinvent. The fifth one is respond, and the last one is reinvest. This each and everyone has their own habits and their own practices, so people can just focus on them and they can update their habits of wealth. And let me focus in respire, the first one. When I was writing this this book, the COVID-19 just came along, and I saw a pattern with my clients in this mastermind, and people that were expressing that they were spending a lot of time more in their offices, like in their home offices, they were working more time, and they had a lot of anxiety. So in one session, I was with them, and I started seeing that people actually didn't. They were very anxious, so they were speaking like rapidly, and they didn't express with clearly what they needed. So I just said as a joke, hey, breathe, breathe, and they just stop and say, oh, are we here for creating new strategies? And no, just stop and breathe. It's respire, like inhale and exhale. And respire is the practice of recognizing all the things that you do in life, all the things that bring you peace of mind, serenity. Because when you are in peace and with a quiet mind, then you can start creating new strategies, new mindsets, new way of interacting with your clients, new ways of negotiating with your providers or whatever you need. And with that in mind, then we start like making a stop and allow them to say, okay, what are the practices that you need to incorporate in this COVID-19 situation that will, from doing them, they will bring you peace. And there are plenty of the normal ones like meditation, exercise, but clients of mine, they say, well, spending time with my family. So, okay, what's the amount of time that you want to spend or when? So clients, they stopped their business at 5 o'clock so they can have supper and spend a little bit of time with their kids, and that like allowed me to recognize or reconnect to their equilibrium, to their joy. Another ones, they start meditating more, and actually one of them, they told me he did it like a small WhatsApp group, and he invites all the group to meditate at 6 o'clock in the morning and at 8 o'clock in the afternoon, and he got that peace of mind. Another one just say, oh, okay, having conversations with all the people that owe me, like scheduling time for sending the invoice and saying, hey, yeah, you owe me. How does that's going? So that kind of principles are the ones that each it's connected, and the first 4 ones are more into your inner game, like the inner part of yourself, your purpose, knowing the mission that you are in, and looking at all the people that surround you and know that you can count on them and that you can help them, like you're in this journey together, so you can leverage onto them. And the other ones are, and the other three of them are more into the strategic thinking of the business. Yeah, or like how do you, what are the new strategies that, like this reinvention is okay. Now you cannot go to visit your clients each day. So okay, can you create a new way of communicating? Yeah, let's do Zooms. And one of my clients started to interact with all his clients in a Thursday evening to do beers and a strategy. And the only topic that they cannot touch was commercial issues. Like but he opened a space to interact with their clients and what were they thinking and what are the needs. But they couldn't talk about business. He was willing to listen to them, and from there he expanded his business because he started like stopping time to listen to the needs of the clients. Yeah.
I think this was fire really resonates well with me because I look at it from a viewpoint of pause and reflect,
Uh-huh.
which is basically what you've described, because we've got to stop. We've got to say, just wait a moment, let's just gather everything around us, let's reflect. And then the last thing that you mentioned with this businessman who had the Thursday evening sessions is that I think so much in today's modern technology, we don't communicate that well.
Yes.
And we're inclined to rush it through in an email and send it off to the person who reads it, and then he sends it off. And there isn't that communication more or less face-to-face, even though it's done now, which is not as good as being with the person. But this example on the Thursday where they can communicate. Now, so he's listening to what his clients are saying without the commercial aspect. He's understanding what their feelings are, their expectations are. And then he can communicate that back to them as well. And it can only lead to growth.
Yeah.
Both clients and for the person who runs that business.
Yeah, and actually he has reported back to me saying that his business has grown, but also he's starting to see that their competitors, that they were his own clients, they were started doing new conversations or new businesses with each other. So and they came back to him and say, hey, I'm very grateful for this Thursday's strategic beers, because it's a way of that networking and like-minded people, and I think I truly believe that if we don't start like seeing each others as growing partners, we all going to like, it's not a competition, it's we are in this ecosystem, and if we don't help each other to grow, we are in a bad future. Yeah, it will be awful to be tragically extinct.
And this I think also comes back to something which Alexander Inchford mentions in terms of the ecosystem, where you start as that seed, you grow, become a tree, but then you look for others to support and to interact with and to work with. So you actually grow a forest in your ecosystem, so that you actually feed each other in a way, to the mutual benefit of everybody involved, and obviously to our families as well. So this book sounds extremely exciting, and I look forward to going through it, because it's always good to question the way in which one plans things, and to really reflect, so to pause and to stop and think, where am I now? And then the strategic planning behind it in terms of communication and other aspects, which you obviously addressed in that book. So when, or how can we access this publication, and when will it be available?
Well, the publications, it will be on April next year, because I'm doing it in English and Spanish, and like I wanted the challenge, so I'm writing in both languages, and sometimes my brain gets a little bit mixed up. So, and my editor kind of kills me, but but yes, it will be able in April, and I'm starting to record some podcasts in Spanish, and so I can do better the translation. It will be easier. But yes, in English, in April next year, it will be now available. Yeah.
So I think it'd be wonderful if, I don't suppose you mentioned you do some podcasts in Spanish, but maybe we can try and get an update of a podcast with you closer to the time, and through Growth Beyond Knowing, we can actually keep people updated as to the progress and let them know when it's actually being released. So
that would be great.
That would be really wonderful if we can do that and just keep the link going and communicate, as it were, so that everybody can consciously create their own wealth, which I think would be a wonderful thing for all of us to be able to do. So I'd like to thank you so much for participating in our discussion today, and it's wonderful to look at, I think, and I mentioned this to Alexander in my discussion with him, that we don't recognize our own potential and our own strength, and that the more that we change, the greater influence we have on others around us. And that then has a ripple effect throughout. And that really is a wonderful way to do it, and to consciously create our own wealth. And wealth here doesn't just reflect in terms of monetary terms, but one's whole person, holism as such, to grow oneself. So Gabriel, thank you very much for being with us, and I look forward to carrying updates from you as to how things are progressing, so that we can actually make sure that everybody has the opportunity of accessing your book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Garth. It has been an honor, and it's amazing the work that you're doing with all your practice and this podcast and even your book. It's amazing. Thank you for the opportunity, and let's keep in touch.
We will do that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.